Digital Marketing Radio, episode 114, Creating a Holistic Digital Marketing Strategy.
DigitalMarketingRadio.com.
Now, today's episode is brought to you by DeepCrawl.com. When you need a comprehensive website crawler that identifies and monitors how your site is performing through the eyes of a search engine, I recommend DeepCrawl. DeepCrawl gives a complete and accurate picture of the health of your website architecture and identifies where the gaps are. Get your free website crawl of up to 10,000 URLs at deepcrawl.com/report. That's deepcrawl.com/report.
The big interview with David Bain.
Today, I'm pleased to be talking to a man who founded his first internet marketing firm back in 1999. He's worked for a large search agency, in-house for a couple of major brands, and is a regular conference speaker. Welcome to DMR, Anthony Kirlew.
Thank you, David. I'm happy to be here.
Well, great. Well, thank you for joining me, Anthony. Well, you can find Anthony over at anthonykirlew.com. So, Anthony, tell me about the cartwheels you do at parties.
That's a good one. I don't know when I started doing cartwheels, but that's just kind of my thing. Usually no alcohol involved, and it's just a whole lot of fun. It helps keep my youth.
Lovely. Sounds like fun. I like reading up about people in their about section in their website.
Yeah,
and picking up little areas.
You caught me off guard with that one. I didn't expect that.
Okay, well, tell you what, I want to do another one to you.
Oh,
onto digital marketing. So, do you think that brick and mortar businesses, for example, do you think that they generally get digital marketing? Because you've been involved in digital marketing, as we covered just a minute ago or so, since about 1999 or so, I gather. So do you reckon that brick and mortar business owners get digital marketing a bit more now than they did a few years ago?
Absolutely. I believe early on, all business owners were skeptical of digital marketing, and brick and mortars in particular, but I'm sure a lot of them have seen the transition from people going to the malls to shopping online and wanted to have their share of that market, and seeing that they can in their own ways compete with the big guys just by focusing on hyper-local search in their social media following.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a trend, or more than a trend. It's a general movement towards digital now when it comes to marketing in general. But of course, you still get your marketing directors that have been around 20, 30, even more years, and maybe struggle or don't desire to learn much about digital marketing and want to stay on the strategic side of things rather than actually understanding the intricacies of how digital will get. But I guess it's been well over a decade now that it's been with us, and the senior positions in businesses, I suppose, are more held by people that get digital marketing now, as you said.
Sure, and I would hope that when they do their digital marketing, when they step out to test something in digital marketing and say, hey, let's try Facebook or let's try pay-per-click ads, I would hope that they do not just the research to find out what to do, but to know how to track it so they can monitor against their foot traffic, their mailers. I mean, obviously, lots of companies are still doing mailers, and obviously, if the mailers are working, you don't want to stop doing that. But what we've noticed is how people have integrated digital marketing into their mailers. Years ago, they didn't have the web address or the Facebook address on their mailers. So now you're seeing where a couple things are happening. One is they're integrating digital marketing into their traditional marketing, or they're taking those steps to say, you know what, we're going to invest in Google AdWords and see how that works for us and really monitor the ROI. And what a lot of them are finding is that they can live together. Traditional and digital can be a really good marriage and produce good ROI for them.
Yeah, no, that's great. Great thoughts there. I mean, I love that word integration. It's so important that the business in general does things that make sense and work effectively together.
Right.
You get, as you pointed out, offline mail sending out by various companies, and that of course can be integrated through APIs, using CRM systems, and everything can in theory flow very nicely.
Mhm.
Do you reckon most companies are actually doing that on an automated basis now, or they're still struggling to integrate that part of things effectively with their systems?
When you say the integration of the mailings?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, in theory, it's possible to do things like if a customer signs up to a list, or
Sure.
perhaps makes a minor purchase, then perhaps through your CRM, use an API to actually send out a physical piece of mail. Then,
Absolutely,
um,
absolutely. I would tend to see that the smaller companies have less automation, and mainly due to cost.
mm,
But obviously, your larger companies, the one that comes to mind is Infusionsoft, which is really robust system that a lot of small businesses can't afford. But I know that can trigger certain offline marketing activities as well. So I think that a lot of the smaller companies wish they could do it, but just don't see it in the cards financially.
right. Okay. And so, would you say integration is something that most businesses are struggling with more than other areas in digital marketing?
I believe sometimes they can struggle with the startup cost. So they see the value, but they maybe haven't had a good enough explanation of the long-term ROI to say, yes, it makes money, yes, it makes sense to set this up initially, put out that investment so that on the back end we can do a lot less manual work.
Okay, okay. So you mentioned just before we actually started recording this discussion, that you have a system. I think it's a SWOT system that you talked about. Do you want to mention a little bit about that?
Sure, we call that the digital SWOT analysis, and for those familiar with business planning, the SWOT analysis looks at your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. So what we do is we do that on the digital side. We'll look at a company's digital footprint. We'll analyze what they're doing online, and we'll say, these are your strengths, these are your weaknesses, some areas where you can improve. These are opportunities, so maybe things that they haven't looked at, and then these are your threats, and those could be things like not doing proactive reputation management, whereas negative reputation could become a threat to them down the road. And what we do is we present that to them and help them make the choice. What can they do now? What can they put off? What can they do internally? And what do they need help with?
Wow, okay, that's quite interesting actually, because I remember at business school a few years ago, studying SWOT analysis and
Mhm.
using that, but I haven't really used that approach to online business that often. I added that often to it actually because I recalled that I maybe had done it a couple of times.
Mhm.
Let's maybe can we maybe actually take the listener through those four different areas and perhaps highlight one area from each that perhaps is quite typical in a business being strong, and a business perhaps being weaker about. So, I mean, starting off with strengths. What is the typical area of strength that a digital marketing department might be doing quite effectively?
So a company could be producing great content, and so the strength could be that they're producing maybe 2 blog posts a week and maybe a video a week, but maybe there's some other things down the line about getting that content out where we see the opportunity. It's two parts. It's the content creation, and the content marketing. So the content marketing could be a strength, but they could be not meeting the goals that they desire because they're missing the content marketing part on the back end.
Right, okay. And I guess content marketing could be a weakness as well if they're not doing the right type of content marketing, if it's fairly poor quality, just content that's been produced maybe by a third party, not lengthy
Sure,
enough. Yeah. Um,
absolutely.
okay, that's interesting. So the strengths, weakness, opportunities. So what kind of opportunities do you tend to define for companies?
So we could stay on the content marketing channel. If they're
Yeah,
not
sure.
producing any content, there's an opportunity, right? It's like,
Yeah.
hey, what internal resources do you have that can create blog content, video content, email content, podcasts, whatever they are, and we help them realize that Google is really in the business of serving up good content. And so if they're not producing good content, the chances of Google serving them up are just less. And if their competitors are serving up content, then that can kind of explain to them why their competitors are coming up where they'd like to come up in searches.
Okay, great thinking, yeah. And I guess an opportunity in terms of content marketing, again, could actually be defining people within that organization who have that ability to produce good content.
Absolutely.
And get them to do it, yeah. So the kind of maybe business leaders that you speak to about content marketing, and perhaps they haven't done much content marketing in the past, do you find them receptive enough to be willing to do the content marketing themselves, or generally do you find business leaders as people who think that digital marketing should be done by digital marketers and not by business leaders?
I believe you have two types of people. You have the people that just love to create content, and they're excited to jump in if you tell them what to do and how to do it. And then there's the other people who say, just make it happen. And we're happy to serve either. Rather, we can coach the people that want to create their own content, or we can have our team create content where people are averse to it, don't have time for it, or would just rather not do it, rather focus on other things.
And do you ever try and change the mind of anyone that doesn't want to do it, but you really think they would be best at actually producing content for that particular organization?
So not necessarily change their mind, because one of the things we really want to do is we want to make it easy for them to do. We want to show them that it needs to be done, and we want to make it easy for them to execute. If somebody has a really, really compelling story, what I might say is, hey, give us some bullet points from your mind, because you're really the expert here. We're the expert at telling your story, but it's your story. So help us with some nuggets from your specific experience around this topic.
Okay, that's interesting. So you're talking about you producing the content for them, just as long as they actually provide you with a skeleton to actually produce that
Correct.
content from.
Correct.
Right.
And in most cases, we don't have to. You know, I don't want to say your run-of-the-mill businesses, but you know, your insurance, your finance, your real estate topics, we can create, you know, pretty, I'm going to say generic content, but in the voice of that company. We get to know the company and kind of the voice that they want. But let's say somebody's an expert in neuroscience, and we could do research, but telling that story in a genuine way is going to come so much. It's going to come across so much more effective if we have some actual content from the principal or the brains behind the company. No pun intended.
Right. Okay. And threats is the final part of a SWOT analysis. So I guess one of the threats, if you had a good content producer in-house producing content and they decided to leave the company, and so have you ever seen that situation before? And have you perhaps helped a company manage themselves through that process and perhaps find someone else to replace them?
Absolutely. In fact, we even do it for other agencies, where an agency will lose a resource and we'll, kind of in the background, their clients don't know who's ultimately doing the work, but we'll support them as an agency. And I believe that's a threat that all companies face. Losing people that they've invested in. So that's huge, because you mentioned content, but depending on how segmented their team is, that could be a lot of people. And God forbid, a handful of them leave and start their own company, which also happens.
So do you believe that every company out there should be doing some form of content marketing, or is it not right for certain types of businesses?
I would say every company should be involved in some form of content marketing, because every company has a story to tell to their target audience.
Okay, and do you also believe that it's possible to effectively measure the ROI of every piece of content that gets produced?
When you use words like every piece of content, I believe you can measure the ROI of your overall content marketing plan. You can certainly measure, with Google Analytics, how impactful a certain blog post is or a certain piece of content is. So I would say, in general, yes, you can measure ROI.
It's a challenge. I mean, one of the challenges that I've faced in the past is the fact that with with PPC, with pay-per-click advertising, it's very easy to have that call to action and measure precisely
Sure.
what happens in terms of ROI from that. And obviously, a piece of content can be produced. It can be effective for a long time in terms of bringing traffic to a site, and it's not necessarily the last page that people will actually make a purchase decision from. People may read a piece of content and go off somewhere else and come back, and it's difficult to track that user. But it doesn't mean that content marketing isn't effective. It's just more challenging sometimes to justify, I guess.
Absolutely, and it's certainly a different form of measuring ROI than a PPC. And even with PPC, it can be challenged, pay-per-click. But if you have like e-commerce with PPC, that makes it just really easy. And I think we get spoiled in those situations where you can go from click to purchase and say, hey, we tracked the sale, as opposed to we generated content and we've elevated the brand, and now let's measure that elevation up against new inbound leads that didn't come from paid search, and then ultimately conversion. So I agree, it's not as easy to measure, but it's absolutely measurable.
Okay, good. I mean, just because something is obviously less easy to measure doesn't mean that it's not as, or perhaps even more effective as more measurable forms of digital marketing. And that's the challenge for people like us, I reckon.
Well, right, and that's also the challenge in convincing the business leaders that there's value in paying somebody to help them measure. But of course, we would never want anybody to invest money in a campaign where the ROI wasn't measurable. I always tell people we want two things. We want them to make more money than they spend, and we want happy customers that refer other happy customers.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, let's segue into the second section of our discussions. That focuses more on your thoughts on where digital marketing has been and where it's heading. So starting off with
software I couldn't live without.
So what software do you currently use in your business that if someone took away from you, it would significantly impact your marketing success?
Software. It's so funny. When I think of the one thing I couldn't live without, I think about my iPhone. So can I say iOS? Is that a software?
I think that would that would count. Yes, your operating system.
Right.
You quite happily live without any apps on it whatsoever. Yeah, you just want your operating system.
Well, I'm cheating. I'm saying that the operating system helps me have the apps, but that's truly the one tool that I couldn't live without, because it's so connected to everything I do, from email to voice messaging to text to running social media through my apps. But specific software, gosh, Sprout Social makes social media management very easy. So I love Sprout Social. I would still be able to do what I do. It would just take a lot longer. I love Google Drive because it's a great collaborative tool for both working with clients and team members. I've really grown to love QuickTime on my Mac, because I can make these little screen share videos that people seem to resonate with. And for example, if somebody emails me a question and I can't take time to answer their question, I may be able to take time to make a little quick video with the screenshot, and that's going to be a lot quicker than me walking them through something. I'll send them that video. They're happy because they think, wow, this guy took time to create a video for me. And of course, I'm happy because I just created some content. And if they have that question, I'm sure that somebody else has that question too. So we throw those up on YouTube, and that's just a part of our content marketing engine.
That's an absolutely great tip there. What I've sometimes done in the past is had a look through Google Analytics to see the most common questions that are asked about a list of products and services, and then if you make new pages and optimize the content to answer those questions, and ideally in video form, then it's a fantastic form of content. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So okay, it's a slightly more challenging question. What piece of software don't you use, but you've heard good things about, and you intend to try at some point in the near future?
That I intend to try. So the most recent one that was like that that I went ahead and tried was Periscope. There's so many new things always coming up in social media, and I heard about Meerkat, and then I heard about Periscope, and I'm like, wow, something new to learn. So I jumped on board, and I got to say I've really fallen in love with Periscope. So
okay, wow. Because I've actually periscoped a couple of these episodes of Digital Marketing Radio Live.
Okay.
And I've put the full sound into my iPhone here,
Right.
and it's been an interesting experience. But the challenge is, of course, is you're looking at so many different screens at the same
Right.
time, and you're trying to answer people on Periscope and
Right.
have a decent conversation with someone there as well. So perhaps it's more of a pre and post show tool rather than actually broadcasting the whole show. But
Right.
it's a new medium, so people are still
Absolutely.
finding out
Absolutely.
ways about it. Yeah. Okay, moving on to.
I wish I would have.
So I'd like you to look back on the very first day that you're involved in trying to market a business online. What didn't you do so well? What do you wish that you would have done differently?
What I wish I would have done differently was write a business plan, because it's a very common misconception that unless you're trying to raise money, you don't need a business plan. And what I subsequently learned is that's not true. A business plan can be a great guide to help guide the business, help you remember what it is that you set out to do, but also as you bring on partners and employees, you can have things like your mission, your vision, your values, who your actual target client is, and once that's on paper, it's easier to convey. I eventually did do that, and so, but looking back, that's the one thing that I wish I had done earlier, and the one thing I encourage others to do as well from the get-go, before jumping into marketing.
That's intriguing, because I think a lot of digital marketers who perhaps even haven't had a career before getting involved with digital marketing think that because it's online, they can do everything by the seat of their pants, and conventional business rules don't necessarily apply. But I love your SWOT analysis and your business plan, and you're basically saying, look, learn from the past and apply those good things from the past to what you're doing present day as well.
Absolutely.
The this or that round.
So this is the quick response round. 10 quick questions. Just 2 rules here. Try not to think about the answer too much, and you're only allowed to say the word both on one occasion. So ready to go?
All right.
Email or Twitter?
Email.
Audio or video?
Video.
Affiliates or display advertising?
Affiliates.
Facebook or Google+?
Facebook.
Online press releases or one-on-one relations?
One-on-one relations.
Paid search or SEO?
Oh, SEO. That was a tough one.
Email contact form or telephone number?
Email contact form.
Website or app?
Website.
Social subscriber or email subscriber?
Email subscriber.
And local marketing or global marketing?
It depends.
Well,
Local.
you had your one both anyway, so that's
right.
quite fine. Yeah. I was surprised actually. The one that you struggled most with was actually paid search or SEO.
I know.
So why was that?
I started in SEO, and I firmly believe in SEO. But they're different approaches, and I believe that the best approach is to have them work together. If I just had one, however, I would go with SEO, because it's more of a slow and steady wins the race. With SEO, you can eventually get there. With paid search, you can get there tomorrow.
Right. Okay. Because I thought you were going to say or struggle most with website or app, because obviously you said the iPhone, the iOS
Right.
system was your most important thing. So you still think that websites are more important than apps?
I do, and that's because websites are accessible to everybody without them having to download the app. When we consult about whether or not a business should have an app, we have to think about a couple questions. One is, will people take the time to download? And then 2, will they actually take time to interact with the app? With the website, there's it's easier to share, and a lot of your marketing is kind of done for you in terms of having search engines that can just direct people to your site. Now, if apps start to come up in search, well, that might be a little different.
And of course, search is coming to the iPhone as well, and you can search apps in iOS 9 as well.
Right.
I just published an interview with Ed Dale, and he's really into iPhones and anything iOS. And he was going on about how this could be a game changer, and it'll be
Right.
intriguing to see how much people's use of search on their phone will actually be, compared with their use of Google Online or Google on their phones. Lots of changes coming up.
Absolutely.
But going on to
The $10,000 question.
So if I was to give you $10,000 and you had to spend it over the next few days on a single thing to grow your business, what would you spend it on and how would you measure success?
So now this is funny given my question of SEO to SEO versus PPC, but I would spend it on pay-per-click search because you said you're only giving me a couple days, which means I would have to be able to dial into my target client pretty specifically, and I could do that with paid search. And I would measure success based on the number of leads that I produced. I would do a lot of ad testing, a lot of campaign testing in a short period of time to produce the maximum number of leads, and then ultimately look at the conversions from those leads, conversions to sales or customers.
Now, you said pay-per-click search, but you didn't define it necessarily as being Google AdWords. Would it be all lumped on Google AdWords, or would you?
Yeah, great distinction there. And yes, I would say Google AdWords.
Okay, interesting. Because there are lots of opportunities up and coming. The people are doing very well with retargeting and things like that. But as you mentioned, to get that very, very quick, effective outcome, there's possibly nothing better than paid search and maybe Google AdWords now.
Sure, and what I find, Facebook AdWords is an amazing platform, and they've got retargeting as well. But what I find is when people are on Google, they're actually looking to solve a problem then. When I see a Facebook ad, it may be a site that I've been to. It may involve something in my life, but it's not something that I'm necessarily looking for at the time. Whereas if I type in pool cleaner in Phoenix, there's a good chance I'm looking for a pool cleaner in Phoenix in the very near future.
My number one takeaway.
Well, Anthony, you've offered a lot of great advice in our conversation, but what's the number one takeaway? What's the single most important step that our listeners need to take away and implement in their own businesses?
My number one takeaway would be, before starting a marketing plan, make sure that you know who your target customer is, know what their specific needs are, and know how you can serve those needs in a way that's different than your competition. So how do you differentiate in serving those customers' needs? To me, that's really critical before you start marketing, because that's going to drive your marketing. It's going to determine where you market, who you market to, and the messages that you share with them. Okay,
so know who your defined customer is. Do you actually are you a fan of buyer personas? Do you actually try and define that before? Okay, and so how do you actually go about defining who your ideal customer is? Do you survey existing customers, or do you actually try and just come up with your own definition of exactly who you want to approach yourself without any surveying of existing customers?
I start with the intent of the business. So why did you start this business? What was your goal in creating this service? And then we look at, okay, who have you served? Who, of the people you've served, who have been the best customers? Who have given you your best testimonials? Kind of look at it from there. If it's a startup, then obviously we back up. We may even back up and do market research and say, hey, let's talk to this audience and make sure that you're offering a solution to a problem that they actually have and that they'd actually pay for.
Great tips there. Yeah, I love that tip about looking at customers who have given you good testimonials in the past, because a lot of companies even get unsolicited testimonials from customers and then don't have any further conversation with them, and that's a crime shame. Well, yeah. Absolutely. Great. Okay, well, I reckon that takes us to the end of our conversation today. So thank you so much for your time and your advice. What's the best way for our audience to find out more about you and what you do?
Well, David, first I want to say thank you very much for the opportunity. And folks can find me at anthonykirlew.com. That's Kirlew. I'm also on Twitter. The handle would be @AnthonyKirlew. And feel free to use the contact form and contact me, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great stuff. Well, thanks again, Anthony, and thank you, dear listener, for joining us. So if you like what you heard, I'd really appreciate your feedback too. So just go to digitalmarketingradio.com/iTunes and please leave an honest rating or review. It would be absolutely fab to hear from you, and of course, it would help to improve the ranking of the show on iTunes. And finally, I'm also hosting a brand new live show every Friday called This Week in Organic. So head over to thisweekinorganic.com to find out more. But that's all for now. Until we meet again, adios. Thanks again, Anthony.
Thanks, David. Take care.